The world of golf is built on respect, a silent code passed down from legends to the next generation. But what happens when the student challenges the master? Not with words, but with raw, unbridled emotion. What happens when the heir to the throne shows the king that he has a temper, too? This is the story of a generational clash that never actually happened on the tee box. It's a story about a single, frustrated yell that echoed across the ocean. It's about Scottie Scheffler, the stoic world number one, finally losing his cool in a moment of championship pressure. And it's about a legendary glare from Tiger Woods that made the entire golf world stop and wonder, did Scottie just fire back? It was a moment that shattered the narrative. The humble, respectful Scheffler suddenly showing a fire that we have only ever seen from one man. A moment that raised a question no one had dared to ask before. Is the student not only ready to surpass the teacher, but is he also ready to challenge the godfather of the sport on his own turf? You are about to see the moment that changed the guard forever. In the rarefied air of Championship Sunday at the Hero World Challenge, the air was thick with tension and the threat of a tropical storm. It was a battle of wills, not just against the course, but against the elements. The Bahamas had become a crucible, and at the center of it stood the two titans of modern golf. On one side, Tiger Woods, the host, the legend, the 15-time major champion who was attempting a comeback that many thought was impossible. On the other, Scottie Scheffler, the world number one, the man whom many had already crowned as the heir to Tiger's throne. It was the final round, and the stage was set for a showdown that would ultimately reveal more about the men than any trophy ever could. For Scheffler, the day had been a grind. The wind was howling, the pressure was immense, and the course was playing brutally hard. He was trying to chase down a leaderboard that was stacked with some of the best players in the world, and every shot felt like a life or death struggle. Then came the moment that would define the day. On the 11th hole, a reachable par 5, Scheffler decided to go for the green in two. It was a bold, aggressive play that showcased the kind of fearless golf that had made him a champion. But as he stood over his second shot, he saw something on his ball that immediately filled him with dread, a speck of mud. In golf, a clean lie in the fairway is a sacred thing. It's the one place where you are supposed to have total control. But when mud is caked on the ball, it becomes a lottery ticket. The aerodynamics are completely altered, and even the purest strike can result in a wild, unpredictable shot. Scheffler, knowing the stakes, swung with everything he had. The result was disastrous. The ball hooked violently to the left, missing the green by 30 yards and disappearing under a bush. It was a catastrophic result from a decent swing. The frustration was immediate and palpable. Scheffler, who has made a name for himself as the consummate professional, rarely showing a flicker of emotion, finally let the mask slip. It was the kind of anger that golf fans are not used to seeing from the typically stoic Texan. And right there, watching from the fairway, was Tiger Woods. Woods, as the host and the golfing godfather, had a front row seat to Scheffler's outburst. In the immediate aftermath, Woods offered a critique that cut to the bone. He suggested that Scheffler's decision to be so aggressive with mud on his ball was a poor one. To many, this was a subtle, cutting rebuke from the master to the student. But this is where the story gets interesting. The narrative suddenly shifted. A section of the golf world began to ask a question that would have been unthinkable a year prior. Did Scottie Scheffler just fire back? Not with words, but with his actions. The frustration he displayed wasn't just about a bad shot. It was the frustration of a man who is tired of the comparisons, tired of being told he's the next Tiger, and perhaps most importantly, tired of having his decisions questioned by the very man whose shadow he is supposed to be stepping out of. This wasn't just a golfer mad at a bad bounce. This was a king showing his teeth, and the old king was watching. The silent tension between the two men on that 11th hole is what will be remembered. It was a passing of the torch, but it was a torch that was handed over with a lot of heat. To truly understand the weight of that moment on the 11th hole, you have to look back at how we got here. The tension that crackled through the air in the Bahamas wasn't born from a single shot. It had been building for years, fueled by a rivalry that was never really a rivalry, a torch passing that was never really acknowledged, and a respect that bordered on reverence from one side and measured admiration from the other. The truth is, Scottie Scheffler has never wanted to be the next Tiger Woods. He said it himself, repeatedly, and without hesitation. When reporters press him on the comparisons that grow louder with every victory, He dismisses them with a wave of his hand. "It's very silly to be compared to Tiger Woods," he has said. "I think Tiger is a guy that stands alone in the game of golf, and I think he always will." And he means it. Scheffler grew up watching Tiger dominate in a way no one had ever seen. He was part of that generation of kids who picked up a club because of what Tiger did on a Sunday afternoon. To him, Tiger isn't a rival to be dethroned. Tiger is the reason he became a golfer in the first place. But the shadow of a legend is a long one, and Scheffler has been living in it for the better part of 4 years. He has been the world #1 longer than anyone since Woods. He is the first player since Woods to have 5 or more wins in back-to-back years. He won the Jack Nicklaus Award as Player of the Year for the 4th consecutive season in 2025, a streak that only one other man has ever achieved, and that man's name is Tiger Woods. The numbers don't just invite the comparisons. They demand them. And no matter how much Scheffler deflects, the golf world cannot help itself. He is the closest thing we have seen to Tiger in his prime. And that has to weigh on him, even if he won't admit it. That weight was on full display the night before the final round in the Bahamas. Scheffler had a 2-shot lead going into Sunday. A 2-shot lead at a tournament he had won 2 years in a row. A 2-shot lead with the chance to make history and become the first player to ever three-peat at the Hero World Challenge. The pressure was immense, but Scheffler had been in this position before. He had thrived on it. He knew how to close. Yet, in the quiet moments before the final round began, the whispers of the impossible standard followed him. He wasn't just playing for a trophy anymore. He was playing against the ghost of a legend. And that ghost was following him down every fairway. There is a story that Scheffler tells that reveals just how deep his admiration for Woods goes. It was the final round of the Masters in November 2020. Both men were 11 shots out of the lead, with absolutely no chance of winning. Most players in that situation would go through the motions, sign their scorecard, and catch the first flight home. But not Tiger. Scheffler remembers standing on the first tee, watching his idol read his putt, and he was struck by something that would change the course of his career. Tiger was locked in. Completely, utterly, ferociously locked in, even though the tournament was already over for him. Scheffler saw that intensity and realized that he had been missing something. He had been guilty of not giving himself enough chances, of not bringing that same fire to every single shot. From that moment on, he changed his approach. "When I show up at a tournament, I'm here for a purpose, and that's to compete hard. And you compete hard on every shot," he said. That lesson from Tiger Woods transformed Scheffler from a very good golfer into the most dominant player on the planet. So when Tiger questioned his decision to hit driver with mud on the ball, it wasn't just a critique of a single shot. It felt like a critique of everything Scheffler had built his game on. It was a reminder that the master was still watching, still judging, and still expecting perfection. And for the first time in a long time, Scottie Scheffler wasn't in the mood to listen. The turning point came not with a single swing, but with a single sentence delivered with a smirk. As Scottie Scheffler walked off the 11th green, still seething from the bogey that had just cost him a chance at history, Tiger Woods was in the NBC broadcast booth, watching it all unfold. And when the producers asked him about Scheffler's decision to hit driver with mud on the ball, Woods didn't hold back. But he didn't explode either. He did something far more devastating. He smiled. "He's the #1 player in the world. He can do whatever he wants," Woods said, the words dripping with playful sarcasm. The camera caught the smirk. The tone was unmistakable. It was the kind of comment that sounds like a compliment on the surface, but lands like a knife in the ribs. Translation: "You're the best, so you can make whatever mistakes you want." I wouldn't have done that. But what do I know? I'm just the guy who won 15 majors. The golf world immediately erupted. Social media lit up with clips of the exchange, and fans were quick to pick up on the subtext. "Definitely a YWLO shot by Scottie," one fan wrote on X. Another pointed out the irony. Tiger Woods, the most aggressive golfer in the history of the sport, criticizing someone else for being too aggressive. Because if you go back and look at Woods' career, the man practically invented the kind of reckless, high-risk, high-reward shot that Scheffler just attempted. In the 2013 Masters, Woods tried to attack the pin on the 15th hole with a 60-degree wedge, aiming for a birdie. Instead, his ball hit the flagstick and ricocheted into a water hazard, leading to a penalty and a double bogey. That was Tiger Woods at his most Tiger Woods. He took risks no one else would take. And now he was standing in judgment of a young man. But here is where the story takes its most fascinating turn. The narrative of Scottie Scheffler firing back at Tiger Woods is not one that Scheffler himself would ever acknowledge. In fact, when reporters pressed him after the round, he refused to take the bait. He spoke about rust, about needing to be sharper around the greens, about the 4-month break he had taken from competitive golf. He didn't mention Tiger's comments. He didn't mention the smirk. He didn't mention the tension on the 11th hole. But the tension was there, hanging in the air like the Bahamian humidity. You could feel it. Scheffler's frustration on that shot was not just about one bad break. It was about the weight of expectation that has been on his shoulders since the day he became world number one. It was about the comparisons to a legend that he can never escape. And it was about the quiet, unspoken pressure of being judged by the very man who defined greatness. When Woods said Scheffler could do whatever he wants, he was reminding everyone that he is still the king, the ultimate authority. And Scheffler, for all his dominance, is still the challenger. The 11th hole at Albany Golf Club has a way of separating champions from contenders. It's a par 5 that invites aggression, a 530-yard test that whispers promises of eagle and birdie to anyone brave enough to take it on in two. But on that Sunday afternoon, it became a trap, and Scottie Scheffler walked right into it. Here is how it all actually unfolded. Scheffler began the final round with a 2-shot lead over Sepp Straka, the Austrian who had been playing some of the best golf of his life all week. Scheffler was chasing history. A win would make him the first player to ever three-peat at this event, a feat that even Tiger Woods, the host and the greatest player of all time, had never accomplished. The pressure was there from the first tee, but Scheffler had been in this position before, more times than almost anyone else on the planet. He knew how to handle it, or so it seemed. Then came the 11th hole. Scheffler's tee shot found the fairway, the ideal position to attack the green in two. But as he approached his ball, he saw it. A speck of mud on the front of the ball, right in the perfect spot to disrupt the flight. In professional golf, unless the tournament committee invokes a lift, clean, and place rule due to wet conditions, you play the ball as it lies. You cannot wipe it clean. If you hit the fairway and the ball picks up mud, you are at the mercy of the golf gods. Scheffler has spoken about this frustration before. At the PGA Championship, he called it the most frustrating thing in the game. You spend your whole life trying to learn how to control a golf ball, and due to a rules decision, all of a sudden you have absolutely no control over where that golf ball goes, he had said earlier in the year. But on this day, he didn't have the luxury of complaining to reporters. He had to hit a shot. Scheffler pulled his driver. It was a high-risk, high-reward decision. He was 291 yards from the hole, and if he could find the green, he would have a putt for eagle. But the mud on the ball made that a lottery ticket. He swung hard, made solid contact, and watched in horror as the ball hooked violently to the left, missing the green by 30 yards and disappearing under a small bush. The result was catastrophic. He was forced to hack out to a sandy area, then hit his 4th shot over the green into a back bunker. Only a superb bunker shot allowed him to escape with bogey. It was a 5-shot swing in the making. But the disaster didn't stop there. The bogey on 11 rattled him. On the very next hole, the par 3 12th, he found another bunker off the tee. Another bogey. 2 holes, 2 bogeys. And while he was crumbling, Hideki Matsuyama was soaring. The Japanese star, who had started the day 3 shots off the lead, holed out from 116 yards on the 10th hole for an eagle to take control. By the time Scheffler was walking off the 12th green, he looked up at the leaderboard and saw that Matsuyama had a 5-shot lead. The tournament was effectively over. Scheffler finished tied for 4th at 20 under par, earning $237,500. A respectable finish, but not the historic three-peat he had dreamed of. The story of the 11th hole is not just about a bad shot. It's about the fine line between confidence and recklessness. Scheffler is the best ball striker in the world, a man who has won 4 consecutive Player of the Year awards and 2 majors in 2025 alone. He plays with a fearless aggression that has made him almost unbeatable. But on that Sunday, in the Bahamas, that aggression finally caught up with him. And Tiger Woods, watching from the broadcast booth, reminded everyone that even the #1 player in the world is not immune to the consequences of a bad decision.